As a junior engineer, I've been with the Safety Inspection Authority for some time now, being mainly responsible for the safety inspection of petrochemical companies. My job within the authority has recently changed, and I'm now training to become an inspector of industrial gas companies, including production right through to distribution, so I'm aware that I have a lot to learn. To get an initial idea of my new duties, I made appointments with all the gas companies in my area to see different aspects of each operation. My education started sooner than I thought because I received a call from a gas company telling me they'd had a tow-away incident at one of their bulk liquid customers and would I like to see the result. So we arranged to meet.
Barry, good morning. Nice to see you again. How are you? Oh, not bad, thank you. How about yourself? Morning, James. Morning. Morning. Thanks very much.
The manager of the factory, who took us up to the tank, told us that the gas company's fitter was already on site making repairs. I was encouraged to see the factory manager was alert to safety matters. I saw him telling a driver to park away from fire equipment. It was a multi-tank installation, and the tow-away had occurred on the nitrogen tank. Fortunately, the pipework hadn't fractured, mainly because of the substantial fixings on which the couplings were mounted. We were just discussing what repairs would be made and the procedures that would be adopted to avoid a recurrence of the incident when a tanker turned up to fill at the other tank. It seems the fitter's van was blocking his access. It was fortunate that my visit coincided with the delivery of gas, as I was able to see the differences between decanting a cryogenic liquid as opposed to any other. The noise was horrendous, but luckily the gas engineer had some earplugs with him, and I was most grateful as he told me that the noise level could reach well over 90 decibels. It took about 30 minutes to decant the 10 tons of liquid he was delivering, so I had plenty of time to see how it was done and still have a chance to talk about the tow-away. I had seen all I needed to by the time the delivery was finished, so we left the fitter to get on with his work. What I had seen so far made me realise how different the hazards are associated with gases and cryogenics compared to less volatile products. We said our farewells and I drove away, wondering what I would learn from my next visit. My next visit was to a gas production facility. I'd already been informed that I needed to wear protective footwear on this site, so came prepared. After signing in and getting my visitor's badge, I made my way to the offices to meet the plant manager, who was to be my guide and to explain the process. Although I already knew about the footwear, I didn't know if safety glasses were required. I was told that eye protection rules differ from company to company, and on this site safety glasses were only required in specific hazard areas which were signposted. The pipe runs and equipment were familiar territory to me. It looked very much like a chemical plant. What I needed to understand was the special risks associated with gas production. Before going into the control room, we had a look in the gas sampling area. Now that's a classic hazard, using the fire extinguisher to prop open the door for a bit of extra ventilation. It was a small confined room into which the main air gases were piped and automatically sampled. The computer system monitored all the changes, so operators only worked there occasionally.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Well, we're logging most of the process here. Okay.
All right, Martin. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Control rooms are familiar territory to me. There's always plenty going on, despite a high level of automation.
Hello, nice to meet you. So you'd like to tell me what's going on over there at the far side?
A minor alarm went off while we were there, so we didn't stay any longer to bother the operator.
Sure. Okay, that's lovely. Okay.
Back out in the open, I was shown where some process plant was being maintained. The scaffolding was obviously an obstruction and at head height could cause serious injury. I tactfully pointed this out, bearing in mind my visit was educational and not a safety audit. My guide explained that this area had both steam and cryogenic piping. Although they were at the opposite ends of the temperature scale, burns could result from both. Heading for the compressor house, we both reached for our ear defenders. The noise level was as high as anything I'd experienced, which made conversation difficult. The material stores were also in the compressor house, so it was essential that anyone with access should wear ear protection. Back outside again, we headed for a temporary oil storage area, which was set up while a new building was being constructed. There were quite a few environmental hazards here, and I just had to make some notes for my next official visit. Alongside the cooling tower, I noticed that a chemical container had almost lost its markings and that it had been badly placed over its bund. Any leakage from the container would spill outside and contaminate the ground. This was another note for later. The hydrogen and carbon monoxide production area was located away from the main plant, as these products are highly flammable and require special handling techniques. For our safety, my guide had collected a portable gas detector which constantly monitored the atmosphere. At the CO plant, we put on our safety glasses. We had a word with the senior operator to let him know we were on his plant and climbed the stairs to see the rest of the installation. I was surprised at the compressor capacity on site. They seem to be everywhere. Oil leaks are always a problem around compressors, and I was pleased to see precautions had been taken before this one reached the drain. Back in the main plant area, we walked down to where a fitter was making a weld repair to some underground piping. The site manager went over to check that he had the proper work permit for this special job. Hot work anywhere on a plant like this requires stringent control. Everything seemed to be in order, and we continued our tour. High-pressure cylinders were also filled on this site, but I was going to see that operation at another company. Today's agenda was to see a cylinder filling and distribution operation, and I was feeling a lot more competent about what to expect. This was a much smaller site, of course, as bulk gases were not produced there.
Here's Mr. Savage now for you.
Oh, Martin. Morning. Nice to meet you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
After a short talk about the facility, we started our tour. I was grateful for the coat, as it had just started to rain. We cut through the palletized cylinder holding area on our way to see the cylinder preparation equipment.
John. Hi.
There was some interesting and specialized machinery for cylinder cleaning and painting, but I headed over to the racking as I could see there was some bad housekeeping there. It wasn't necessarily unsafe, but left as it was, it could soon develop into a serious hazard. Our next call was to see the load assembly area, where pallets were made up for each customer. At this company, distribution vehicles carry their own forklift trucks, making them independent of the customer's handling equipment. We were just in time to see a typical problem. Customers sometimes remove the valve guard and don't refit them properly. This requires particular care when handling return cylinders. The company were expanding their operation on this site to include an acetylene gas production unit. This was in the early stages of construction, and there were many different tradespeople on the site. The manager explained how difficult it was to get the building workers to understand the rules and precautions necessary when leaving the construction area and going onto the gas site. Quite a problem for the manager, who had sole responsibility for all personnel working on the site. Here were cylinders ready for dispatch, although one needed its retaining strap tightened. The manager pointed this out to his operator, who explained that 2 small cylinders were to be added to this batch. In In the cylinder filling hall, my guide was explaining how the filling process was monitored when a full pallet was about to be removed. Fortunately, he'd spotted that a filling hose was still connected. This, I guess, was the cylinder equivalent to a bulk tow-away. On the way out, we passed the liquid gas storage area where small liquid containers were filled. It had been a most informative visit, and I felt I was at last getting a good understanding of the industrial gas industry. My next visit was to see a bulk gas distribution garage. The security certainly seemed to be effective. I completed the visitor details and picked up my visitor's badge. It seemed that signing in and out is standard procedure with gas companies. The manager here was not only responsible for the garage, but also for the distribution of all the products produced here. We went straight through to the garage, and I commented on the congestion in the corridor, but was told that they were rearranging offices and were only temporarily storing furniture here. The garage bay was typical of any heavy tractor maintenance facility, and was not specifically dedicated to gas. That didn't mean that there was any less potential for hazard, and we came across a typical trip hazard that occurs wherever air or power cables trail across walkways. The pit area of every garage is probably the most potentially dangerous, and if this hadn't been an educational visit, there would have been quite a few things here I would have liked to have seen improved right away. Even so, I felt a polite reminder was necessary. The general garage area was separated from the gas and cryogenic maintenance bay, which was a much cleaner environment due to the nature of the work carried out there. My guide asked the fitter if he had a work permit for this vehicle. When he produced it from his pocket, he was reminded that in this company, all work dockets have to be posted on the vehicle for the information of other fitters. I was beginning to learn a little of the differences in work practices from company to company. On our way to see a couple of equipment service areas at the back of the garage, we passed where heavy-duty batteries are charged and where they also store tyres and vehicle springs. Before leaving, my guide suggested we take a look at the offices, which are typical of those in any industry.
How'd it all go? Good, good.
Although it wasn't my responsibility, my guide and I discussed the potential for accidents within the seemingly safe environment of an office.
Different sort of broker.
In this office, the staff handle customer inquiries and sales accounts. It was a busy area, needing constant reference to files.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. Let's go over here. What's going on this one?
I just had to comment on this situation. A stack of redundant files was not only a serious hazard if they fell, but would be ideal fuel if there was a fire. I thanked my host for her time and for making the visit so informative. I then left to return to my own office. When I started on this project, I thought the greatest potential for injury would be through the inherent hazards of the gases themselves. From the statistics, and from what I've seen so far, I believe that most of the work injuries are caused by situations that are common to all industry, and it's only going to improve by creating an awareness of the common hazards in their surroundings.